Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to speak about when Thor was at his best, because I spoke recently about possibly Mitchell Hooper being better than Thor Bjornsson and Eddie Hall. And a lot of you seem to think that Mitchell Hooper is miles behind Thor in terms of static strength and overall strongman. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to rewind the clock and bring our peak Mitchell Hooper into 2018 World's Strongest Man. So the first thing we're going to do is name off all the guys that was in 2018 World's Strongest Man. It is a strongman fanboy's dream. So on that list of men, we had Big Z, we had Brian Shaw, we had Thor, we had Martins Lisses, we had Mateusz Kielikowski, we had Mateusz Belczak, we had JF Caron, Johan Els, Robert Oberst, and Konstantin Janasha. It was a 10-man final. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop Mitchell Hooper into the gang there, and what we're going to do is work off an 11-point system as opposed to 10. So I think the only thing we can really do here is compare. It's different for deadlift. We know what Hooper is capable of when it comes to deadlift, but with stuff with the frames, we just go by what he has done in the past. The events in the 2018 World's Strongest Man were frame. It was a 825 pound frame, which is 375 kilos for 25 meters, which was up and down. Then we had the deadlift. It was an 850 pound deadlift, which is 386 kilograms. It was a car deadlift, the front bar. Then we had max overhead press, which was a normal 25 mil bar with the drums either side. It was starting at 170 kilograms and it was from max. Then we had bus pull, which is a fairly standard event. Loading, which was a difficult event because just the objects in the loading race in 2018 World's Strongest Man were difficult. And then we finish off at stones. So let's go event by event and see how Hooper would fare out. And we're going to go by the points that the rest of the guys accumulated, and we're going to put Hooper where we think, or where I think he should go. So event 1 was frame. We can only judge off of what Mitchell Hooper has done in the past in terms of frame, which is a frame at the Arnold Classic, which was up a ramp, and Mitchell Hooper, I think, won it or came second, but I remember at the time he was a hundredth of a second from breaking the world record in it. So let's be honest, Hooper is really good at frame when he wants to be. The other time he did frame was at this year's World's Strongest Man, where he did a frame after carrying a 1,000-pound yoke, which kind of upsets how capable he was of actually being at frame that year, because the 1,000-pound yoke will whack you out of place a little bit. The frame at the World's Strongest Man this year, I think, was 330 kilograms, which is in around, I think that's like 40 pounds-ish. Where he didn't do well in it at all. I think he came 5th overall at that. So we know that there's a little bit of a kink in his armor when it comes to the grip, as his hands had opened up in that event. So we had, now without Hooper being there, Mateusz Kielikowski won it. Brian Shaw came 2nd. Thor came 4th overall, and Lisses came 6th overall. Now I think Hooper, I'm going to put a mid-pack here. I'm going to give him 5th place overall. I think he would have just popped ahead of Lisses. Lisses carried it for, I think it was 24 meters. And not, what did he do? He didn't do the full length anyway. So I'm going to put Hooper, because I think Hooper's a clever man. He would have tried and just beaten Lisses and just popped it ahead of him. So I give him 7 points for that, which is 5th overall, which I think is a fair enough statement. Then we had deadlift. We all know Hooper can deadlift. So Brian and Thor shared points in that event. They're both joined 2nd. After that, JF came 3rd. Mateusz didn't do well in that event at all. He was down in 9th place. Lisses came 5th in that event and 7 points. So the points for the deadlift, what I'm saying is the deadlift was 850 pounds, which is 386 kilograms. So I think Hooper brought into that, I think he would have matched Brian and Thor in reps. We've seen Hooper on deadlift before. We know what he's capable of. He's a 475 kilo max. Recently at the Royal Albert Hall, he matched Lisses' record on that axle, and that axle that was at the Royal Albert Hall is one of the most difficult deadlifts repetition events there is. in my experience anyway, and a lot of the guys would agree with me, just for it being a small bit deficit. It's the axle bar, and it is also very bouncy. So when you do a rep, you put it back down, it tends to bounce around the place a bit. So I put him right at the top there for maximum points. We'll let the joint first. So they accumulated 10 points each. Matthias got 2.5 points. He was third. No, he wasn't. He was in ninth position in the deadlift that year. So he accumulated 2.5 points. Lissus was fifth and he accumulated 7 points. Then we had the max overhead. Now, the max overhead, I'm going to say Hooper was winning this event. We've seen what Hooper can do with a clean and press. He did 218 kilograms there recently at the Royal Albert Hall, so I'm going to put him first place of this event. Thor actually won the event that year, so I'm giving him second place. Then we jump down to Matthias and Lissus equal points that year, so they get 8.5 points each, and Brian Shaw was down in fifth place. He did joint seventh place with 3 other guys, so he gets 5.5 points there. Bus pull, it was hard to judge Hooper on bus pull because we haven't seen him doing too many bus pulls. I know when he first did, it was his first time doing it in his first year of World's Strongest Man, which was back in 21. And he did a decent enough time. Now you have to imagine that Hooper is a perfect specimen for doing a truck pull or a bus pull, because we all know it's all legs, and Hooper has the strongest legs in the business, because recently we saw him squatting 10 reps of 380, and I know the squat at the strongest man on earth wasn't ideal, but we know what he's capable of with those legs. Even when you see him pressing a log or doing an overhead press, it is all, his power comes from his quads. So you'd imagine with a couple of, if he brought that into his own training and trained on a truck pull for a while, we'd have to imagine that he would be a really good bus pull. So in saying that, I gave him fifth. I just had to go middle of the pack again with that, because we don't actually know, and bus pulls have often go wrong more often than they go right. So Matthias won the event that year. Thor came second, so we give Matthias 11 points there. Thor came second, we're giving him 10 points. Brian Shaw was fourth in that event, so we're giving him 8 points. And then I put Hooper in fifth place with 7 points. Then we have Lissus in sixth place with 6 points. So I'm not sure the points tally up to at this stage. We leave that for a surprise at the end. Then we had loading. The loading race was a really difficult one. Lissus unfortunately did really bad here. I think it was a sandbag, and it was that big safe, and it was the anchor. Lissus failed to load the last one. He got last in that event that year. So accumulated 1 point there. I think Hooper would have won it again. We've seen Hooper in loading races. The man is lightning speed. In his first year at World's Strongest Man, there was a loading race into the super yoke, and he beat everyone. I think it was crazy. It was something like he beat everyone by 10 seconds. We've seen it in the past, what he's like at loading. He's one of the best in the world at loading, so I'm going to give him maximum points there. I think he would have pipped Thor at the loading race just because he's so competitive. We've seen what he can do in the past, and it's just, I suppose, if you think otherwise, let me know in the comments. So there in the loading race, I give Hooper maximum points, 11 points. Thor is in second place. I give Matthias third place. Well, I didn't give him, that was his position. He got 9 points. Brian Shaw was sixth with 6 points, and Lissus, unfortunately, was down in last place with 1 point. Then we move on to the stones. The stones is a kind of a difficult one again to judge by, because the stones that year were placed right up against the platform, so they didn't have to carry them, so it was kind of difficult to go by. A lot of people messed up the stones that year also. I think Thor missed out on the last stone. Now he loaded the last stone, but I think he ran out of time. So just to go what the guys got before I introduced Hooper into the system. Thor got 5th overall. Matthias got 6th overall. Shaw got 4th overall, and Lissus got 2nd place overall. So Lissus accumulated 9 points. Shaw accumulated 7 points. Matthias accumulated 5, and Thor got 6. And again, we've seen Hooper. I just compared Hooper to his stone run at last year's final, because it was the one that was most kind of similar to that year. And even then, they had to pick up the stones and carry him a bit of a distance until he got to the last stone where they just had to load it. That year, he was up against, last year, Hooper was up against Tom Stoltman, and that's a good way of knowing what Hooper is capable of on the stones. And Hooper loaded them stones, all 5 stones, in 36 seconds. Tom Stoltman loaded them 33. So it'll just show you how good Hooper is on stones when he needs to be. So I think Hooper would have won that event. I would have given him maximum points. Because I think he was just that smart. I think what happened a lot of the guys that year is because World's Strongest Man was on out in the Philippines. So a lot of them messed up their tacky. I think Hooper, because we all know Hooper is one of the smartest in the game, he would have known how to deal with that tacky. He would have put out all his tacky balls, even though I know Brian Shaw is a fan of leaving out his tacky. But Brian had an injury that year in his foot, so I don't think he tried overly hard on the stones, knowing he wasn't going to win. But Hooper, I think, would have got into that full belt and would have loaded all those stones really fast to secure his win at 2018 World's Strongest Man with Thor. So the points for a finish were in another, because I only did the points for the 5 guys, which is Lissus, Matthias, Hooper, Thor, and Brian. So in first place, we have Hooper with 57 points. So Hooper won the 2018 World's Strongest Man. In second place, we had Thor with 54 points. After that, we had Matthias with 47 points. Then we had Brian Shaw with 46.5 points. And then we had Lissus down 37.5 points. So there you go. I just proved it again that Mitchell Hooper is probably one of the best strongmen we've ever seen. And I'm not sure how many more of these videos I'm going to have to make to prove to you that I'm not wrong when it comes to strongmen. I have all the information. I know strongmen. Not that I studied it, but I just know a lot about strongmen. So let me know what you think, guys. I'm going to put up the scoring system for the points in here just so you can see it yourself, and let me know in the comment section what you think, or if I got it wrong. If you think Hooper would have scored differently in those 6 events, let me know what you think. I think I was fairly fair in it, even at that. Like, he beat Thor by 3 points by my system. So even that allows for 3 mistakes where he still could have won. 2 or 3 mistakes where he still could have won that year. So guys, thank you all for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I will do more of these little fantasy strongman things. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong, and thank you all so much. I will see you later.